It's a new era for UCLA football, and we are pleased to sit down with the man in charge of it all. New Bruin head football coach Bob Chesney joining us on the Bruin Insider Show, alongside the former UCLA quarterback Wayne Cook. I'm Nick Koop. Coach, appreciate you making the time, sitting down with us. I know it's become a very busy month of December for you. What's it like being Bob Chesney these days?
Oh, man, there's a lot that goes into it, that's for sure. I think I'm just so blessed and honored to be out here. We left the snow when I got on the flight the other day, and we're out here and just enjoying this beautiful weather, enjoying getting to meet so many great people, and, just understanding how many people impact this football team and just have the right mindset and want to win. And that's one of the biggest things, like I mentioned before, is that can you win here? Should you expect to win here? And the answer is yes, and everybody agrees to that. So I think that's what makes me the most excited. But there'll be some pretty sleepless nights coming up here over the bunch the next few weeks, and obviously we have a huge challenge and opportunity in our ability to go out in this 12-team playoff with JMU out to Oregon. So there's a lot in here that I'm gonna have to work through, but multitasking has been a good thing for me in the past.
Well, first off, congratulations. That's an awesome accomplishment.
Sure.
And we know that when you do that, you have options. So why UCLA? What was sold to you on this? I mean, I know why.
Yeah.
But what is your reason?
Nothing was sold to me. Everything was presented to me, and I think that we, had to find that it was the right match for the right reasons. And I think from, almost very early in this process, when there was a change, I got a call pretty quickly, and there were some, players involved in this that I knew from my past. One, Bill Simmons, that's I think pretty close with Casey Wasserman, and another guy named Brett Veach, who's really close with Adam Peters. And those were calls that happened way early before anybody even was talking about this actually being a thing. And then we started to move forward. And when I started to learn about the belief, when I started to learn about the connections that your alums have, when I started to learn about the power, of the just the energy and the positivity that's around this program, it just felt like the perfect place. And there was many other opportunities for me, and at the same point in time, none felt like me as much as this opportunity.
What were your impressions of UCLA being on the East Coast all those years, and how are those impressions validated or changed over this process?
Yeah, this is so interesting, but when you are a college football coach, you have very little time to watch. And you watch a lot of football. You just don't watch a lot of football of other people that you're not playing against. So, there's very little time. Saturday night, you were usually playing night games. Sunday, you're not watching NFL, and you're right back into it. So I didn't have a one notion or another in a positive or negative way. I just knew the history of it here. I knew what this place was. I know that it is one of the greatest areas that you could possibly bring a recruit to or live in the world. And at the same point in time being, number 1/number 2 academically with those connections. I understood all of those things. That was really important for me. And at the same point in time, I didn't have, any one solo thought one way or another. I just knew the history and, was excited to possibly be part of it.
I love hearing you say that, because one of the things that I think about all the time is, like, what do you want as a coach? I want someone that's going to bring in a bunch of people that believe that we can win here.
Yes.
If you don't believe that we can win here, we're going to have a problem.
Correct.
And for you, you've won everywhere you've been a head coach. And so talk about how, that's such a big part of this. We all have to be locked in, including us. Everybody's got to believe we're going in this direction.
You must, right? The minute that you even don't, right? The minute that, our, custodial services doesn't, we all have to believe in this. And this is the idea of alignment. And alignment has to ring true from the top all the way to the bottom. And I think it's one of the most important things we can do as an organization here is to make sure that we all believe that we are going to win. We all know that we are going to win. And what we do every day is going to lead us to that opportunity come Saturdays. You will not play a game. When we arrive here, when the kids get back here in January, you will not play a game all the way until somewhere in August. So when you think about that, February, March, April, May, June, July, there's 7-8 months of not playing a game, but what you're doing every day is going to affect your ability to play and win in that game. And I think that's the idea of understanding, first, what are our expectations? I asked every kid in this room earlier today, what do you want? What do you actually want? Not what you say, what do you want? Because once you say what you want, now there comes some sacrifice. And are you willing to sacrifice what you got to sacrifice to get what you ultimately want? But once we understand what our expectations are and what we want, then we start to build ultimately the standards, what we got to do every day. And then the process of holding each other accountable to it is really the way this thing works. But if anybody anybody that touches this program doesn't believe we're going to win, they should not be part of this program. I agree with you.
You've used the word alignment today. I've heard it in your past press conferences at your previous stops. Also in that same vein is culture, a word that gets thrown out a lot in a football program. What do you want people to say about your culture here at UCLA over time?
Well, I want them to say the same thing they'll say about any program that I've been around, is that we will play very tough, physical, emotional, confident, inspired football. That's really it, right? I got into this game because it was in my blood. I got into this game, it's because every male in my family was part of this game. And to me, I wanted everybody to have the same amount of passion about this sport as I do. And that's not easy to do. A lot of people are in it for a lot of different reasons. So our ability to identify talent, but not only that, identify mindset and making sure that mindset fits what we're about to do is what's going to make this place special. That's how it's worked everywhere I've been, right, is making sure you got the right people. We don't always need the best people. We need the right people, right? And that's to me, that idea of watching them on film and seeing their passion and feeling them through the screen is what we need here. And that is what will happen.
Gosh, there's so much good stuff there. I want to stay with the family thing for a second because my dad played for the University of Arizona. He was a high school football coach. I was the little kid, and I'm wondering if you were the same, that was sneaking into the coaches' meetings when they were watching film in the back room, and I was just absorbing everything. And it affects the way you think about this game, and it brings you that passion. Like all the stuff you're talking about, I've been saying it forever. Like, we got to be locked in. It's not always the most talented guy. It's the right guy. Like, we've both played on teams and coached on teams where the most talented team sometimes struggles.
Yes.
And the team that maybe has less talent but is a better team wins. I mean, you're on a team right now that's 11-1 at JMU that has an opportunity to do something pretty amazing.
Yes.
But if you put stars next to their names, Oregon's got 8,000 more than your team does.
And a couple millions, tens of millions of more dollars as well. And that's just part of it. That is part. But I agree with you. If you think back to your dad's best teams, you think back to what they made them what did they feel like? You probably could identify that really quickly. And you could look at those teams and say, man, it felt like all of his great teams had the best people. And then you look at some of his poor teams, you're like, they weren't really great people. And I wonder if the chicken or the egg, right? Like ultimately, were we winning? And that's why everybody had a good attitude? Or was it losing so people had bad? But I really think it comes down to the right people could accomplish a lot of different things.
Didn't it feel like on all those teams, like if we're talking dad talk now, it was always a player or two. Wasn't the most talented guy in the world. But, man, if his finger was hanging off, he would still play.
And they would embrace him. The guys that were the stars of that team would embrace him and understand his role's not as important maybe on the big picture, but at the same point in time, this kid's important to the team. That's the difference of great teams and average teams, is that they understand everybody matters. There's no more right field, right? Think about when in Little League Baseball, you put the kid in right field, the ball never goes there. He could chew bubblegum and chase butterflies. Nobody cares. When you get to this level, there is no more right field. Every single person on this team matters, whether you're a scout team player running down on kickoff. You matter to make sure that we have the speed, the intelligence, and the toughness that comes with the team that we're about to play. So every single thing matters. Everything here matters. The way they keep their lockers, the way they keep the weight room, all the little things matter. And I could tell you right now, if I walk through this whole building, I didn't go in the locker room, but in the weight room, there's some things that got to get cleaned up a little bit. You get into their locker. If it's not, I could already tell you if they're serious about winning or not, because it's not a sometimes thing. It's an all the time thing.
You were talking about passion earlier, and we heard you at your press conference say that you couldn't really remember a time where coaching wasn't the agenda for you. I'm curious, the passion that you have for this game, what's like your earliest memory you have with the game of football and where you can maybe pinpoint where that passion really sprung?
Well, I mean, I think there's just so many. I couldn't even – I remember the first time I was 6 years old, full-padded B-team quarterback, and I remember going to do the quarterback tryout. I threw the ball. I became the quarterback, and I remember sitting on the picnic bench with all the coaches and players around, and they're like, you're the quarterback of the B team. They're like, you got to know how this offense works. You know, the fullback's the 3-back going through the 2-hole, the 4-hole, those are to your right. I'm like, wait, I don't know if I know. And like, just go home and talk to your dad. And we stayed up all night as a 6-year-old kid, and I learned the entire playbook and came in the next day and was ready to go. That was the first time I understood the game within the game, or even thought about the game within the game. But there were so many other examples of, you know, the psychological side and the personal side, and watching a kid struggle in life life and having this coach that believes in him, get a little more out of him and help him reach his goals that nobody ever thought he could reach, or just the demanding nature at which my father coached and just how hard he was on those guys. But at the same point, they'd walk off the field saying how much they didn't like him, and then 5 minutes later, I'd see him putting his arm around them and them coming over to me and saying, never mind, forget about what I said about your dad. So he understood the way to coach them hard but love them harder, right? And those were all the things that I think, were my lessons in life that enabled me to understand this isn't just X's and O's. There's people here, and they're not just football players. They're young men that are trying to grow. They're on a journey of trying to figure out who they're going to be in life. And I think, when you do a lot of the other things off the field right, you have a tendency to get it right on the field.
Coach, when I teach my students about George Washington, I love to use him as an example of a leader. And it's not just because of the type of, he told people what to do, but he listened. He surrounded himself with the right people.
That's right.
When you're looking to create a staff, I'm not asking for names, but the type of person that you're looking for to develop, because I remember some of the assistant coaches I had when I was here were some of the greatest coaches I've ever had.
That's right.
The head coach was great, but assistants matter as well, and so that's really important.
Yeah, so, and back to George Washington, he never really wanted to be the president, right? He didn't want that power. He wanted to spread that power amongst his staff, and he wanted it to be a we thing, not a me thing. I think that's the exact same thing for me and our staff. There's a couple things I look for, obviously, in a staff. Is the first thing is you got to look and say, is this kid competent? Is this guy competent? Does he know what he's doing? Is he capable with the X's and O's and the development? And then at the same point in time, can he recruit? Right. So there's this competent piece that has to happen. The next thing is he's got to be able to connect with the players. So you got to look at him and say, all right, well, can he actually connect? Does he relate to the players? Do they get who he is? Can he be demanding, not demeaning? Can he ask them for a lot and then give it to them? And then the final thing is there's got to be chemistry that works within the entire staff. So I think there's this competence, there's this ability to connect, and then there is this chemistry that's got to work. I don't want everybody on staff to be me. They can't be me. We need diversity in many different ways, right? And we need geographic diversity in particular at this moment. And there's a lot of things that I got to do to cover my blind spots and make sure I got the right people. But the number one thing, Wayne, is to make sure that when my son Bo or my daughter Lila or my daughter Hudson are running around this building, when any of other coaches' kids are running around this building, I don't need to know where they are, but I do need to know that they're with good people. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that is the final piece of that is their character, and that's important to me.
That's a big piece of the agenda for you when you get here full time, and obviously with the caveat that you have your great opportunity with JMU coming up next week. But when you do come back to Westwood, what else is part of your agenda as you settle into this role?
Oh, man, where do you want me to start, right? So I think the semblance of a staff is the important part. There's people that I have to be loyal to that have been loyal to me. I did not get here by myself, and I won't pretend I did. And at the same point in time, I got to make sure that we start to get this recruiting department right. I think that as you look through our roster, there's some good, there's some things that we got to improve and just continue to get better at, and that is important of the evaluation, the acquisition, and then also the development, and then the retention. Those are all the things that happen, but in every step of the way becomes this idea of connecting, which is relationships and relationships along the way, and that's an important piece of this to me. So ultimately, it's going to be a people, situation here that we're talking about, including the current players on our team, including those that want to stay, those want to go, those that leave the mission weren't meant for the mission, and it'll be disappointing for them, but I'm not going to be sad about those that leave. I'm going to celebrate those that stay or those that are interested in coming and being part of this, because I do think that in the very near future there's going to be people that wish they were part of this and didn't walk away from it. But if they leave the mission, they're ultimately not meant for the mission.
I know people are going to want to hear this, so I'm going to ask, and I think from listening to you in the press conference, the offense and defense we might see, I think a lot of that has to do with the type of players we bring in.
For sure.
Whoever ends up being the coordinators, I think that all matters. But do you have a vision of what type of offense and defense you're looking to run?
Yeah, well, I think that if you look at what travels, all right, if you just go back through the history of football, and I don't care what level, Pop Warner up to a Super Bowl, there's a couple things that I think hold true. Number one is that you got to be able to run the football, right? You got to be able to run the football when everybody knows you have to run the football. You got to be able to close the game out when they know it, you know it, the stands know it, the people watching at TV know it, everybody knows it, and we still have to be able to do it. the adverse is true on defense. You got to be able to stop the run, right? And then you got to be able to win the turnover battle. And then on top of it, you got to limit the X plays, and you got to create your own X plays. So those are really the things I think that if you look through and you could take your teams or whatever that you think back to your dad or to whatever it might be, the teams that usually are successful can control the ball, right, with running the ball and stopping the run. They win the turnover battle, and they win the X play battle. They create more explosive plays than the other team, and that's ultimately one sets up the other. The run game sets up the ability to take the shots downfield, and then when your opportunities present themselves, you got to make sure you make the most of them.
My Rose Bowl team here, we led the nation in turnover ratio.
There you go. Exactly.
It matters.
Yep. It absolutely matters. Yep. The more opportunities you could take away from them and present yourself, the better off you're going to be.
If I could go back to your days at Salve Regina, Division III, I read how you were not just the head football coach, but you were involved with work study and you did game management for the softball program as well.
Yeah.
How do those tasks continue to reveal themselves and help you when you're the head coach of a major program like JMU and now UCLA?
Well, they don't help you much. Where they help you is the idea that there's no job too small. And that if you're going to do a job like that, you need to do it to the best of your ability. And I think that's the thing to me. I was literally in charge of softball game management. So I remember getting a call the one morning, and the athletic director called me and saying, is softball on? I'm like, I was going to ask you the same thing. She's like, wait, you didn't go over and check the field and see if you threw the quick dry on it and rake it through? I'm like, that's my job. I had no idea that was my job. And ultimately, I went over there and did it to the best of my ability. And then eventually we had walkout music. We had all this other stuff happening, for the girls playing the softball. If they were going to do this, and I was going to be in charge of it, I wanted to think of it as that was my daughter. What experience would I want her to have? And that's just the part of how I try to do everything. I try to do it to the absolute best of my ability to make sure the experience that our players or whoever I'm involved with is getting is absolutely at the peak that it possibly could be.
All right, Coach, we really appreciate your time. Best of luck on the road, taking on Oregon with JMU, and we can't wait to have you here in Westwood.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to get here. Obviously, I'm extremely proud and happy of the team, back in Harrisonburg, Virginia. But, the future will begin when that final game is over, and I'll be seeing you all really soon. Not too
Thanks,
soon.
Coach. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.